Thanks for stopping by at Twisted Art Designs. In a previous video, I showed my process for how I disassemble a magazine and use what I look for images for use in collage. So it's like my collage prep. And I'll put a link below for that video because it's a great place to start. In this video, I want to show you how I use the words and letters that I cut out of magazines when I'm doing that initial process of tearing down and deconstructing an entire magazine. I save the words and letters, and I'm going to show you a lot of ideas on how to use those words and letters in your art journal spreads. So stay tuned, because this is going to give you a lot of ideas for inspiration, especially if you're stuck, you don't know what to put on your art journal page, or if you're just looking for new fun ideas. So let's get started. Okay, so for this page, there isn't anything in this that I want to use on my page except for maybe those letters, because they're nice and big and wide. I always flip it over and make sure there's nothing on the back that I want, and there isn't. So what I like to do for my lettering, if it's a word that I want to save, things like pick some, make your own, make someone's day, do you know the story, where we belong, where have you been, things like that, I save those in a folder for actual words. I may want to cut them up and use one word in its whole entirety, or parts of that sentence to add on my page, and then do some hand lettering around it to make a sentence that I want to create. So for things that aren't a word I want to keep, obviously I don't want the word Gucci, I keep the letters. And so I take my scissors and I like to just cut out, and I'm not too worried about it being straight or perfect, but I like to cut it apart and then cut in between and separate each one of those letters. And I used to not take the time to sit and cut the letters apart. I used to just throw them all in my drawer for words and letters, but what I was finding is when I do sit down and I want to create an art journal page, I hated having to take the time to dig through an entire drawer of words and letters from a magazine to look for an A, or look for words that I want to make a Ransom style lettering out of. So I decided to change that up, and now I sit down, I take the time. It takes about an hour to disassemble an entire magazine, but once you get it all cut out and you have all your individual little letters, and you put them into their little envelopes, then when you want to sit down and create, you can easily create a Ransom style word, because you've got all your little Ziploc bags of letters. And then I use just a regular sandwich bag and a piece of cardstock, and I've put an A on it, and so in this envelope are all the A's that I've cut out so far from my magazine pages. So here's what they look like when they're all completed, and I just have them in a box. They fit into the lid of a box or a shoe box, and it's perfect because they can stand up. And the cardstock is actually just to keep them stiff, so they do stand up in a nice little row. So here's all my alphabets, all my random letters for magazines in my box. So if you were going to create a word, you could easily flip through, pull out the ones that you want, and find some cool letters, and not have to worry about digging through your drawer of words and letters that you've cut out of a magazine to have to try to create something. That takes much longer. This took me a little short time in deconstructing the magazine, but when you sit down to create, you're not interrupted by having to do that process. So for me, I find this to be the most helpful. So magazines are such a great resource. You get so many different things, as I've shown in my past video, and I'll put a link in the description box below to my prepping for collage video. But you get so many things. You can get things that you use for borders, obviously the pictures for hands and bodies, faces, lips, eyes, nose, background things like houses, floral things that you can cut into pieces, shapes and textures that you can make other things from. I did a My Favorite Things one where I created a hamburger and I used completely odd things, just textures, looking for textures out of magazine pages to create the image, and when it was done it looked like a hamburger. So they're a great resource, and these are all words that I have cut out, words or sayings, and they're in my drawer for words. So when I sit down to do an art journaling spread, we all are looking for inspiration, and sometimes you open that blank page and you don't have a clue what you're going to create on it. Do I make a pretty girl? Do I just start with that background and do a lot of stenciling? Where, you know, it's art journaling and you need inspiration. So what I do first, my very first thing, before I even pick what I want to put on the page as far as the focal point, the first thing I do is go to my box of words. So the words help me decide and give me inspiration for what I want to do on the page. And there are a couple of different ways that you can use words. You can take individual words and make a sentence, obviously. So, you know, you can put words together, like I want to flourish. You can have this and find the word want and have I want to flourish. So that would be a great page or a great title on a page, and then you can work around it. So what does that inspire you for? Flourish. You might have a happy girl with you know, a rainbow behind her and flowers in her hair. So that might inspire you just having that title of I want to flourish. Or you can use maybe the whole thing that you find, like this. I didn't let blank stop me. You could fill that in with, you know, I didn't let sadness stop me from creating today. That would be a great page. Or maybe you want to just do a positivity page, experience life, stay the path. All these pieces came from magazine ads, magazine articles, and I liked the sayings, so I cut them out and I've put it behind, you know, put it in my little drawer. So turn your passion into profession, or cut that off and use turn your passion into art. There's a lot of things in here that have the word art. Turn your passion into art and make a cute art journal page. So those are some ways that you can use words and put them together to make a sentence. I'm using these words that I've taken from different magazines, and now I'll show you the layout that I created. So what I cut out was turn your passion into mixed media art and fly. And here's the page layout that I did in my art journal. So there's the title, Turn Your Passion into Mixed Media Art and behind this door, fly. So this is how I used those words out of the magazine and just made like a Ransom style sentence. And that is the journaling that I did on the page based on that. So the prompt for finding the words gave me the idea for creating an angel and making this a real mixed media page with lots of different textures and things on it. You can write out what you want to say to journal in your page, and then you also, this is a second fun way of using the words that you cut out of magazines that are in full words, not cut into random letters. You can write out your journaling on a piece of paper. Maybe you write out your journaling. So this is what I just quickly wrote down. Today was a rough week and I needed a little me time to art journal and regroup my thoughts and get back on track. So those are the words I want to put onto my art journal spread. And what I can do now is go to my pile of words and look for some of those words that are in my written journaling that I can place and fill in, and then the rest of it can be handwritten lettering. So what I will do is show you an example of how I use this on an art journal page and how I use words that I found out of magazines to create a layout based around that. And then that gives you also inspiration for what you want to put on the page as a focal. Do you want it to be, maybe you want it to be a little dark and moody. Maybe you want it to be happy to try to get you out of that funk that you're in. That's what art journaling is about for me. And I'm just sharing what my process is, and hopefully if you're having a block maybe on what to create in your art journal, maybe this will give you some great ideas and you'll say, hey, that resonates and works with me. Here's the example of the page I created. So I took words and created my journaling, and it says, this week was super bad and I needed a little me time to art journal, regroup my thoughts, and get back on track. So I used words out of the magazine to create my sentences and create my journaling. And I couldn't find the word track, so I just did a Ransom style there. So this is a super fun way of using words that you've cut out of magazines to create your journaling along with some of your hand lettering, and it just makes a really stunning and fun page. You can also come to your little stash of words that you've cut out of magazines, and you can take all different kinds of words and put them in your background. So to start your page off, find words like passion, dream, experience, future. You can go through your whole pile here and you can dig through and you can look for words that pop out to you, and then randomly put them all over the page, and then put your gesso and your paints and your things over it, but you doing it in a way that they still slightly show through that background, so it just gives that background energy and interest. And you can do the same thing on a border. So say you're needing something different, you're tired of your same old borders on your page, go through your stash and find words that you'd like to have around the border. So you can take random words, like I just did with the past example. You could have just simple words like passion, goals, anything like that, life, dream, faith, destiny, anything like that. You could do single words and put them around your border and then connect into them with something else that your border has all kinds of fun and interesting words in it. So taking the border idea a step further, what if your journaling was your border all around your page? What if what's in the middle is just your beautiful decor, your artwork that you create, your focal, your idea, but you make your words go all around the page doing your journaling, and you use words from the magazine. And I'll show you an example of how I use that on a page. This is the page I created using words from magazines as information or journaling around the edge of the border. So I've got fearlessly paint with abandon, color changes everything, make it your own. Let nothing come between you and creating, be unfiltered and experience life. So those were all words randomly that I took out of magazines, and then I put them around my border and made a border of words that became my journaling. So there's my example. So when I start my page, or when I'm going to go do an art journal layout, that is my very first step, is come to my little stash and go through my words and see if there's something in here that's going to give me inspiration that I want to build my layout off of. The second thing is, if I don't find anything in here that's just hitting me quite right, but I know that I want to do a page with a specific theme in mind, and I want to just use individual letters cut out to make Ransom words, such as this, not my circus, not my monkeys. So see, I used Ransom letters and created a word. So if you have a specific word in mind or theme in mind and you're not finding it in your specific words that you've cut out, then the next step is I go to my little stash of individual letters, and here they are, and they're all separated out by alphabet, And so I know what word I want to make. I come to my little envelope here. I pull out what letters I want. And I love that Ransom letters, when you do that, Ransom lettering, they're all different colors, they're all different shapes, they're all different sizes, and it makes your words on the page just really fun and wonky. So if you didn't find inspiration here, my next step is to figure out what words I want on the page, and then I'm going to go to and do a Ransom lettering style. Okay, so now Ransom style, let me show you some examples of that, because you can do that in a variety of different ways. So here are individual letters cut out of magazines, and I've created the word create. So you can use the letters separated like this, and then once they're on your page, I mean, look at how fun and interesting that looks for the word create. Let me move this out a little bit. There we go. So you can put your letters individual like this, separated out, and then once you've put them down with matte gel medium or glue or whatever way you want to put them on your page, you can take a paint pen and go around them and make your little sketchy boxes or cool little swirly lines around each letter to make it more fun and interesting. So the letters separated are one way of using them. You can link them by putting them one over the top of each other like this. And that makes another interesting look to it, but just something different. You can put them apart from each other, and then when they're on the page, you can link them in a different way with linking them with using lines and things behind it, and I'll show you examples of all of these. The Ransom letters don't have to just create a word. Why couldn't you take these fun and funky letters? You could leave it create, and you could put that all around your page with them being all the way around, and when you link the letters all the way around as a border, it becomes the word create. Or they could just be random letters, because letters are interesting and something fun to look at. So put your letters all around as a border, and that's probably not making sense as I'm saying it, but I'll show you some examples of that as well. Here's the page that I did with that example with the word create, and the letters are separated, and then I drew sketchy boxes around them, and I cut this one out and then cut this one triangular just to make it be interesting to look at. And then I just layered them across her hair and decided to leave her hair white because it just was beautiful and stark on this page. In this example of Ransom lettering, the letters are connected, so they're one on top of each other instead of being separated apart. And then I took a Posca pen and I went all around the entire outside to border it. You could also individually do your squares around each individual letter instead of making a border all the way around. There's so many different options. And then I took a Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pen and just made some shadowing behind those boxes just to make them look a little more interesting. Here's an example where I've done the letters apart from each other, and around each one I've taken a paint pen that has a color that's within the letter and done just some doodling around each one. So each one has its own special doodling with the color, just for something different and a different way to use them. And now this one, I've connected the letters making a line. So I did a line with paint pen that goes underneath, over the top, and then I made a little circle around the line to make it look like almost an eyelet where it's coming out. And so it's weaving that word together. So there's the word fantasy, and it's woven together by almost looks like a string that has been threaded through the letters. So there's another idea and another way of using those random letters. Here's an example of using individual letters and putting them around the border to start your journaling. So I have here, I try to be sweet. So that is, and she's got a cupcake hat on. So that is a good fun way to use individual letters around a border and make your journaling or your title around a border. And here's an example of using punched out patterns and letters and numbers and using them as a border and putting them all different directions. So the letters and numbers are upside down, they're right side up, but look at how interesting that makes that border. It's just really fun to look at, and it's appealing to your eye because it you can tell that it's letters and numbers, but they're going all different directions. So what I used for that is a punch that is the postage stamp punch. This is an old one by Marvy, but you can still find them by Fisker's. So it looks like a postage stamp. And I went directly to the magazine and I punched out letters and numbers and things like that right out of the magazine, and then patterns. So you punch out patterns and colors, and then they're all the same size, so they easily make a border when you glue them down. And then I just used a paint pen to do the rest, and it just makes a really fun page. So that's my final idea for this video in different ways that you can use letters and words out of magazines to do your borders and journaling in your art journals. So I hope you've had a good time, and I hope that this gave you some information and maybe it gave you some new ideas. Everybody needs some new inspiration and new ideas from time to time, and maybe these are things you haven't tried yet. So give it a try and have fun creating art in your art journal. Art soothes the heart. Thanks for watching.